So what's up with Danzo's gigantic elephant summon? Now I know it's not an elephant, that thing is a tapir or whatever that is, but it looks like an elephant, so I call it an elephant. But Baku, this tapir, is a very unique summon in the Naruto series. Well, first of all because we only see it once, after all Danzo dies right after he uses it pretty much. He never comes back, and therefore he couldn't use it again, and it would be weird for somebody else to use because it felt like this Baku summon was very much a unique summon to Danzo, but it also has some interesting power. So let's talk about it, and also why this summon was a bit of a missed opportunity, if I may say so. This topic of very unique and somewhat obscure summons seem to be doing well, and you guys enjoy it, because the video I made on the Rashamons did pretty good. So if you like this Naruto topic, definitely let me know, and I'll keep on doing it with other summons. Now the first very interesting thing we have to take a look at the tapir guy here, Baku, is the occasion where Danzo summoned it. Obviously, it was a fight to the death. It was a very difficult fight. Danzo was already aware that Sasuke was an extremely powerful opponent because it was midway through their battle. And Danzo summons Baku in a very important moment of the fight. He even thinks to himself, I will put everything I have in this next minute, the next minute of Izanagi until his next eye would close. So the first thing we have here is that Danzo trusted this summon and he thought Baku would do a pretty good job. The two-page spread where we see Baku for the first time is amazing. It's this massive elephant kinda just trying to fit on the samurai bridge because the elephant itself is much larger than the bridge, and even Sasuke Susanoo, which looks really cool in a wide shot. And it seems like Baku is famous because Obito thinks to himself, oh, that's Baku, he's much larger than I expected, so he heard about this summon before. Now either he heard a story of Danzo using Baku in the battlefield before, or Baku is just very famous. And I kinda think it's the second alternative here because we never see much of Danzo beforehand. We don't get a lot of legendary stories about Danzo's exploits in the battlefield, not like the Sanin, for example, or even Hiruzen, who all had very unique and iconic summons. So it's more likely that Baku is just a widely known summon because of its powers, which are sucking. Well, kinda. It sucks the air very rapidly into its mouth, and with it, pretty much everything that's in its path. It's a very cool type of summon for Danzo, who is a prominent wind style user. The powers just fit what Danzo is doing in the fight, and when Toby thinks about Baku and what it could do, he thinks, well, it is said this summon could suck even dreams themselves. It turns out this is a very vague and overhyped statement for the tapir, because at the end of the fight, it definitely doesn't seem as impressive as Obito was making it to be, but we're gonna get to that. What we have to bear in mind here is that this summon is famous for one reason or another, just like Gamabunta, for example, or Katsuyu. They're widely known in the shinobi world, so at least you have to respect it. And if I'm being honest here, Danzo's plan to use Baku against Sasuke was pretty solid. Sasuke was using his Susanoo to both protect himself and attack Danzo at the same time, and Danzo simply couldn't bypass the Susanoo at all. He didn't have anything nearly powerful enough to break through the Susanoo ribcage even. And yes, even though he had Izanagi activated and therefore, no matter how many times Sasuke would destroy Danzo with his Susanoo, he would be revived until the time for his Izanagi ran out. Therefore, he needed to solve the fight before he ran out of eyes. And the misconception people have here is that no, he doesn't have only one resurrection per Sharingan eye, he can resurrect for an entire minute. No matter how many times he dies, if the Sharingan is still open, which it stays open for a minute. So Danzo says he's going to bet everything this next minute, and he's going to use Baku to play his final card. At least when it came to bypassing the Susanoo. And it almost works. What happens is that Baku starts to suck the air, aiming it towards Sasuke Susanoo, which was on top of that large column in the middle of the samurai bridge. And let's be real here, if Sasuke did not have a Susanoo here, if he couldn't anchor himself on that column with the Susanoo hands, this would have been very bad for Sasuke, because he probably would have just been completely sucked into Baku's mouth, and we don't know exactly what happens inside of Baku when you're sucked in, but it seems like you die, I don't know. That suction is very violent. And honestly, if the Susanoo was struggling to anchor Sasuke in place, I kinda doubt Sasuke would alone be able to anchor himself there, even if he used chakra to anchor the soles of his feet on the surface of the bridge, because if Baku is able to suck dreams themselves, I kind of figure that trying to stick your feet to the surface is not gonna do much with chakra alone. But as Susanoo, that's much better. But the good thing for Danzo was that when Sasuke had to anchor himself with a Susanoo, he couldn't move the Susanoo hands, and therefore he couldn't counterattack when Danzo came close. Obviously, Sasuke couldn't leave the Susanoo either, or he's gonna get sucked very rapidly. So Danzo pretty much immobilizes Sasuke in place, and now he can move, and that's what he does. He attacks Sasuke Susanoo from behind with a wind-style barrage, and that's where a bit of a plot hole comes in. Why isn't Danzo also getting sucked in? Now obviously, you see that Danzo makes his way to the Susanoo by going on the side of the bridge, avoiding the path that Baku is sucking. Obviously this would work, because he's not sucking in all directions, so if Danzo doesn't trace that path, he's not gonna get sucked in. But then when he gets behind the Susanoo, why isn't he getting sucked in? You may say it's because the Susanoo is blocking the path that's getting sucked in, so Danzo is using that vacuum to stay alive there, and not get pulled into Baku himself. But then, there's another thing Danzo thinks, which is that Baku's suction is going to help Danzo's wind-style barrage become even more powerful by accelerating it towards Sasuke Susanoo. Which would make sense, right? If Baku is sucking air, he would suck Danzo's air attack faster from that direction. But if that would work, why wouldn't Danzo also get sucked in? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe Danzo was tripping and it wasn't actually helping the attack become faster. Or maybe Danzo is simply immune to the suction, because that's what the summoner of the jutsu is capable of. Not getting sucked in by Baku would be a very good advantage for the summoner, allowing it to pull off so many more combos, which is what Danzo does here, so I have to assume it's one of the two, right? But anyway, before Danzo even shoots the wind-style barrage, we can see that Baku is already sucking in a bit of the Susanoo chakra. Now, maybe the only chakra that's getting sucked are those wisps of chakra that exit the Susanoo anyway, so it's not doing much, but you could also interpret that Baku is sucking protection away from the Susanoo, which could help Danzo as well, and maybe that's what he meant when he was going to use the attack and all that, and thinking that Baku would empower his attack, because Baku's already doing a lot by paralyzing the Susanoo and not letting Sasuke completely demolish Danzo instantly, because in that fight, Sasuke crushes Danzo in every way imaginable with his Susanoo. It's kind of funny, actually. But the interesting thing here is that Danzo's plan actually works. After the wind-style barrage hits the Susanoo, the outer layer and the ribcage layer break apart at the Susanoo's back, exposing Sasuke. And because Baku was pinning the Susanoo and Sasuke in place, he couldn't move out of the way, and the Susanoo couldn't do much to counterattack Danzo's advancement there. Now, I guess you could say that Sasuke could just turn around and try to block with his sword or some other jutsu what Danzo was going to throw against him, but either way, it was going to be a bad situation for Sasuke regardless. Unfortunately for Danzo, this is when Sasuke's counter to Baku comes, and it is a pretty intuitive counter if you just think about it. Sasuke uses a fire-style ninjutsu that Baku sucks in and essentially drowns in fire, which renders Baku useless, and he gets unsummoned after the fire damages him a lot. And if I'm being honest, the first time I watched this fight, I think I was 13 years old when it came out in the anime, I thought about this counter when Baku started to suck things in. I was just like, wait, why isn't Sasuke just using fire style, man? Just use that. He's just gonna suck the fire in. It's kinda like how Itachi comes up with a counter to Chubaku Tensei. You don't have to aim, you just have to throw stuff at it and it's gonna suck it in. And fire seems like the perfect counter because it's just gonna get sucked by Baku's mouth and he's not gonna like it. And when Sasuke used that jutsu, 13-year-old me was like, oh, finally, you idiot, took you long enough. And after Baku stops sucking the air, the Susanoo can move again. Sasuke simply turns around and punches Danzo with a Susanoo hand, launching him off to the side of the bridge and destroying his body, which, well, he gets resurrected by Izanagi, but still, it was one more time he got crushed by the Susanoo, and we see Baku getting burned in the mouth and unsummoned. It was over for Danzo Summon there, and this is so weird. I don't like that very much. 13-year-old me was onto something, I guess, but now I see this was a very poor counter. Not in terms of a battle IQ strategy, because obviously it worked, but from a story perspective, because it was way too easy, wasn't it? A fire-style jutsu, a jutsu that famously never works ever in the series, works for the first time here when Sasuke was in a massive pinch? I don't know, I guess it's something for fire-style, right? You never do damage, but this one time you did damage, it worked very great, so congratulations, fire-style. I don't know. If you think about it, Sasuke hadn't used Fire Style at that point of the story for almost 100 chapters. The last time he had used Fire Style was in the fight against Itachi. He did not use Fire Style at all during the 5 Summit. He didn't use Fire Style against B, and he uses it this one measly time to counter Danzo's strongest summon, which was extremely hyped up by Obito before it started to suck in the air around it. And that's the thing, it was too easy. If this thing could suck dreams, couldn't it suck fire as well? Like, dreams are immaterial. I don't even know how you could do that. But it seems like this thing was capable of it, or at least there were stories, and yeah, apparently they were completely bogus and overhyped. But imagine if Baku could actually do those things. Imagine if this thing was actually that powerful and could suck away genjutsu, for example, which is a sort of dream. And it could be kind of what the stories were about. Oh my god, this thing here, it can suck away genjutsu. It can suck away literally anything. So fire is like one of the 5 basic nature transformations, and Danzo knew Sasuke had access to fire style. He not only knew that, but also the entire Uchiha clan had fire style. Danzo dealt with the Uchihas his entire life. He was responsible for the Uchiha clan massacre. He knew Itachi really well, so obviously he knew Itachi could use the fireball jutsu, and Sasuke was known for having fire style, and Danzo had access to the files of the Leaf Village where Sasuke's capabilities would be obviously listed. He even sent Sai to kill Sasuke in the Tenchi Bridge arc, so obviously he would be very aware of Sasuke's capability of using fire style. Which makes me wonder, was this the first time ever Danzo used this summon? Because if it was so easy to counter it with a fireball jutsu, I don't think Danzo would bet everything on the next minute by using the summon to try and implement a plan there if Sasuke's most basic ninjutsu could simply counter it. Now, maybe he thought Sasuke would be too flustered by the suction and wouldn't think about fire style, but Sasuke is a very good ninja. He thinks very quickly, he is very smart. Just rewatch or reread the Sasuke Deidara fight. And that wasn't the beginning of the fight there with Danzo, that was almost the end of the fight. Danzo was already aware of Sasuke's cunning as a ninja, so thinking that Sasuke wouldn't come up with that counter is kinda stupid. Now, obviously, Danzo knew he wouldn't die because he had Izanagi activated, so like, oh, I'll shoot my shot, I suppose. But if he knew Fire Style would so easily counter Baku, why wouldn't he try to implement a plan that had a better chance of working? Was it because he didn't have any other abilities or jutsus he could use? I don't know. He was a root Amba member. I would figure Danzo knew several weird hidden jutsus, and yet he used the one a measly fireball could counter. That's kinda questionable. Not only that, but before he summoned Baku, Sasuke had already shot Danzo with Amaterasu. And Amaterasu would obviously be another very obvious counter for Baku. Yes, it would be more quote-unquote expensive for Sasuke's chakra reserves, but it would do the job very easily. Large summons are famously terrible against Amaterasu. Look at the 8 Tails, look at the multi-headed hound in the war arc. Amaterasu is a natural counter because the dark flames simply spawn at the target if you're looking at it, and it's hard not to look at this massive elephant, for example. So Baku wouldn't even be able to suck the dark flames because he would simply spawn at Baku himself and not at the air between Sasuke and Baku. And this is not a plot hole or anything that Danzo came up with a bad strategy for Sasuke. I would just say it's a missed opportunity. This would be a very good chance to show how crafty Sasuke is, to make him come up with a very clever strategy and to really press Sasuke during the fight. Imagine if Sasuke's fireball hadn't worked there, if Baku had simply swallowed it and the fire did nothing to hurt it. Then Danzo would get a window of opportunity to attack Sasuke. Maybe Sasuke has to do something else to block Danzo's attack coming from behind, while still being sucked by the tapir. Maybe Sasuke even gets hurt in that situation of the fight to make it even more tense. And now yeah, if regular fire fails, the next obvious counter would be Amaterasu, and that would be a very easy GG because it one-shot the A-Tails in 10 seconds or even less. But then if you think about it, this thing was established as being able to suck even dreams. So, if you're actually considering this story true, you could do something cool and make this elephant kind of immaterial. Sasuke shoots Amaterasu at it, and the flames simply pass through it, as though it was phasing through the flames, and Sasuke doesn't understand what's going on. Maybe you can give a very particular and difficult to realize weakness to this elephant so that Sasuke has to come up with another counterplan to Danzo's plan. This would add a layer of difficulty to the fight, especially at the end there, where the fight was like, I guess Sasuke's gonna win, right? If this plan didn't work out, it's kinda obvious how it's gonna end. And you can even use this moment and this plan that Sasuke implemented that allows him to get rid of a much more powerful Baku to plant even more the seeds of Danzo's eventual defeat, with Sasuke casting a subtle genjutsu on Danzo that eventually leads him to win the fight. Like, subscribe, and ring notifications. Please, those 3 things help me a lot and takes 2 seconds for you to do it. It also helps you to get the new videos quicker. Let me know which weird summon I should do next, and thank you so much for watching.